7:12 a.m. Gulf of Oman, 53 nautical miles southeast of the Strait of Hormuz. An Iranian IRGC-N helicopter just fired an unguided rocket across the flight deck of USS Nitze, missing the superstructure by less than 40 meters. The explosion detonated in the water on the port side. Shrapnel scattered across the deck. 2 sailors went down. The helicopter was banking hard for a second pass. What USS Nitze's commanding officer decided in the next 60 seconds determined whether that morning became a naval skirmish or the opening exchange of a shooting war in the Gulf. Welcome to Navy Poverline, where we break down the engagements that rarely make it into official statements and never make it into the full picture. The Iranian military helicopter program is not what most naval observers focus on when they think about Gulf threats. The fast attack boats get the headlines, the drones get the think pieces, the submarines generate the classified briefings. But the IRGC-N's rotary wing assets represent a threat category that surface warfare commanders have been quietly concerned about for years, precisely because they occupy a gray zone that conventional naval defense architecture was not fully designed for. The helicopter in question was a Bell 214 variant, an Iranian-operated utility and light attack helicopter derived from the American Bell 214, originally sold to Iran before the 1979 revolution. Iran has operated and maintained these airframes for over 4 decades, modifying them with locally produced weapon systems, including unguided rocket pods. The Bell 214 is not a sophisticated attack platform. It is not a threat that belongs in the same tactical conversation as an anti-ship missile or a coordinated drone swarm. Its rocket pods are unguided. Its weapons are imprecise. Its survivability against any U.S. surface combatants' defensive systems is essentially zero. That combination, low sophistication, high aggression, survivability close to zero, is exactly what makes an IRGC-N helicopter pilot in an escalated standoff a genuinely dangerous tactical variable. The low sophistication means U.S. commanders can't assume the crew is following a carefully planned doctrine. The high aggression is baked into the operational culture, and the near-zero survivability creates a situation where the platform can either be allowed to keep approaching and firing or destroyed. With all the geopolitical weight that shooting down a helicopter carries, destroying a fast attack boat in self-defense is one category of response. Shooting down a helicopter with a crew is a different one. The optics, the escalation ladder, the international law framework, all of it shifts when the platform has rotors. The Iranian IRGC-N knows this. The Bell 214 had been tracked since 0641. It departed from a coastal position on the Iranian shore and flew a course that initially took it south toward the Omani coast. Its transponder was off. Its flight profile was low, under 300 feet, in a pattern consistent with a maritime surveillance mission. USS Nitze had logged it at 0648 and designated it as a surface group surveillance contact. The ESM suite was monitoring it for emissions. The CIC watch officer had it on the air picture and was tracking its course changes. At 0703, the helicopter turned northwest. Its speed increased. The course change put it on a direct intercept heading for Nitze's position. The CIC watch officer elevated the contact to possible threatening at 0704. Standard escalation of force. The bridge crew attempted contact on guard frequency. The universal emergency channel. At 0705, no response. The challenge was repeated in Farsi at 0706. No response. The helicopter continued closing. At 0709, the ESM suite detected a brief emission consistent with a targeting or range-finding system. The emission was low confidence. It could not be conclusively classified from a single observation. But a targeting emission from an aircraft that had not responded to 2 challenges and was on a closing intercept course with a U.S. warship constituted an escalation indicator. The CO was on the bridge. The helicopter was at 2,800 meters, closing at approximately 150 knots. Altitude, 180 feet. At 0711, the bridge crew fired 2 SRBOC, Super Rapid Bloom Offboard Countermeasures, chaff rounds. The chaff rounds create a metallic cloud between the ship and an approaching air threat, designed to seduce an inbound missile's radar seeker away from the ship's radar cross-section. Against an unguided rocket platform, they serve a different purpose. They are a visible signal. A bright cloud of radar-reflective chaff exploding off the of a warship is internationally understood as a hostile contact signal. It says, "We have classified you as a threat, and we are taking defensive action." The helicopter did not turn away. At 0712 and 6 seconds, the Bell 214 fired from approximately 600 meters. A single, unguided 70mm rocket round departed the left side pod. The round impacted the water 38 meters off Nitze's port bow after passing 40 meters clear of the flight deck. The detonation scattered shrapnel across the forward port deck. 2 sailors in the forward crew area sustained fragmentation injuries, one to the forearm, one across the upper back and shoulder. Neither injury was immediately life-threatening. Both sailors were hit by secondary fragmentation from the shrapnel scatter on deck, not by direct blast. They went down. The medics were moving within seconds. The helicopter banked hard left and began a turn that would bring it around for a second approach from the starboard quarter. 60 seconds. That is what the CO had before the helicopter completed its banking turn and established a second firing solution. The options available to him were not complicated, but every one of them had weight. Option 1. Engage and destroy the helicopter. Nitze's Mark 45 5-inch gun in manual surface/air mode could engage it. The forward .50 caliber mounts could engage it at closer range. The Phalanx CIWS, if the engagement authority was released, would track and engage it automatically within its lethal radius. The helicopter, at 600 meters, was well within multiple engagement envelopes. The ROE for hostile fire, an aircraft that has already fired and wounded U.S. personnel, clearly authorized lethal self-defense response. Option 2. Fire warning shots from the Mark 38 25mm gun across the helicopter's flight path on its second approach. Continue escalation of force protocol. Accept the risk of a second rocket during the time that consumed. Option 3. Maneuver the ship. Put Nitze into a hard turn to complicate the helicopter's firing geometry, simultaneously giving the deck crew time to clear personnel from exposed positions. He had 60 seconds. He chose a combination. Immediately ordered the helm to come hard right, turning the ship's stern toward the helicopter's banking approach, and simultaneously ordered the Mark 38 25mm gun crew to a warning shot authorization on the helicopter's second approach vector. If the helicopter crossed 400 meters on its second pass, the Mark 38 would fire across its nose. He did not authorize lethal engagement, not yet. His reasoning, documented later in the after-action review, was based on 3 factors. First, the initial rocket had missed widely. The trajectory and lack of any terminal guidance suggested a crew that was firing in a harassing mode rather than a trained attack run. Second, shooting down a helicopter over the Gulf with crew aboard, regardless of the legal justification, would be the most significant kinetic incident in the region since the tanker war. The second and third order consequences of that decision required explicit higher authority. Third, the ship was not in immediate danger of a lethal strike from an unguided rocket platform. Not yet. The helicopter came around. At 0713 and 40 seconds, it crossed 700 meters on the starboard side, lining up its second approach. At 0714 and 2 seconds, it crossed 500 meters. The Mark 38 fired. A 3-round burst of 25mm high-explosive rounds crossed the helicopter's flight path, approximately 80 meters ahead of its nose. The helicopter broke left. It climbed to 600 feet, reversed course, and headed northeast toward the Iranian coastline at maximum speed. At 7:19, it disappeared from radar below the horizon. The engagement had lasted 7 minutes and 23 seconds from first challenge to the helicopter's departure. Total U.S. casualties: 2 sailors treated at the ship's medical bay. Total rounds fired by USS Nitze. 3 warning shots from the Mark 38. The helicopter was not shot down. In the hours that followed, the decision not to engage lethally became the central subject of internal Navy review and external scrutiny simultaneously. The CO's documented position was equally clear. He had 2 sailors wounded but alive. The ship was intact and maneuverable. The threat was an unguided rocket platform that had demonstrated poor accuracy. He had 60 seconds to make a decision with global consequences and chose the response that preserved all options rather than closing them. Both positions were defensible. Neither was clearly wrong. The review concluded without formal action against the commanding officer. His handling of the engagement was classified as consistent with ROE guidelines. The decision to delay lethal engagement in favor of continued escalation of force steps was noted as a judgment call that fell within his authority. What the review also documented, in detail that did not appear in the public record, was the intelligence failure that preceded the incident. The Bell 214 that approached Nitze had been observed departing its coastal base at 0641. The P-8 Poseidon that had been operating in the area had been recalled to its shore base at 0615 for an unscheduled maintenance issue, a hydraulic sensor anomaly in the ramp system that required inspection before the next flight. The replacement P-8 was not on station until 0831. Between 0615 and 0831, there was no dedicated maritime patrol aircraft coverage over the operating area. The Iranian helicopter operated in that window. Whether that timing was coincidental, the IRGCN's departure simply happened to align with the surveillance gap, or whether Iranian intelligence had tracked the P-8's recall and timed the mission accordingly was assessed at medium confidence as the latter. The IRGCN maintains a robust signals intelligence capability specifically designed to track U.S. maritime patrol patterns in the Gulf region. Identifying a 2-hour surveillance gap and launching a harassment mission inside it was within established IRGCN operational sophistication. The implications were taken seriously. The P-8 maintenance cycle and recall patterns were reviewed for any predictability that could be exploited. Scheduling modifications were implemented. A requirement for always-on UAV coverage in the operating area to eliminate the gaps that manned maritime patrol aircraft scheduling created was elevated in the force structure planning process. At the diplomatic level, the incident generated a formal protest through the Omani Channel within 4 hours. The U.S. position was clear. An Iranian military helicopter had fired on a U.S. warship in international waters, wounding 2 sailors. The note demanded a full accounting and warned that any future hostile action by Iranian aircraft against U.S. naval vessels would be met with immediate defensive fire. Iran's response, delivered 18 hours later through the same channel, claimed the helicopter had been on a routine patrol and that the rocket discharge was a technical malfunction. The 2 sailors' fragmentation wounds were documented in photographs attached to the U.S. formal protest. Iran did not withdraw the technical malfunction claim. The 2 sailors, Petty Officer 2nd Class from Deck Division and a hull technician, were treated aboard ship. The Petty Officer's forearm wound required debridement and was treated without surgical intervention. The hull tech's back and shoulder injuries included 1 significant shrapnel fragment that required surgical removal at a forward medical facility 2 days later. He was returned to limited duty within 10 days. Both received the Purple Heart. Both were back aboard the ship within 3 weeks. In the IRGCN's operational record, the mission was assessed, based on post-incident intelligence collection, as a partial success. The helicopter had approached a U.S. warship without being shot down. It had fired a weapon and wounded sailors. It had departed the area under its own power. The cost to Iran was a formal diplomatic protest and a revision to U.S. patrol coverage procedures. The lesson being recorded in Bandar Abbas was the same one recorded after the helicopter missile incident. The cost of harassment operations against U.S. naval vessels, conducted below the threshold of a catastrophic attack, remained manageable. That lesson was the most dangerous thing that came out of 7 minutes over the Gulf of Oman. Not the rocket, not the 2 wounded sailors, not even the decision the CO had to make in 60 seconds. The lesson that actions with low tactical consequences could be absorbed by the U.S. response architecture. That was the variable Iran was refining with each incident. The Bell 214 was observed back at its coastal base by satellite imagery the following morning. It had been refueled and was ready for its next mission. The 2 sailors were eating breakfast in the ship's galley. Both of those facts matter equally, and the question that doesn't go away is simple. The next Iranian helicopter pilot who approaches a U.S. warship knows that the one before him wasn't shot down. He knows what the warning shot threshold looks like. He knows how close he can get before the Mark 38 fires. He was paying attention. Stay vigilant, stay informed. I'll see you in the next one.